We're going to put a bed knife on a Toro GreensMawer 1000. So as you can see, the bed bar is out of the mower. And what the manufacturer recommends is you put a little bit of oil on the surface. I don't know if I'm using the correct oil, but I just put a little 3-in-1 on there. But you want to put a little bit of oil on the surface just for rusting probably and stuff like that. So put a little oil on, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some anti-seize lubricant on the screws that we're going to put in. It takes 13 screws, and it says to do the ends first. So we're going to do this end, and then we're going to do this end, and it says to tighten them down. Kind of snug. If I remember the book correctly, the instructions were to do the ends and then tighten them down a little bit, but not as much as you would if you were actually tightening them down. But get them snug, and that's going to hold everything kind of in place. Okay. What I like to do is I'm going to go ahead and put every one of them in, and then I'll kind of get them tightened up, but not really. I'll just tighten them up until they stop, and then I'll start tightening them up. Now, the book says that you're supposed to tighten these up to like 20 foot-pounds or 25 or 26 foot-pounds. Not a whole lot, really. Really, not as much as you would think that you would need to tighten them up. It's right around 25 foot-pounds. But you'll notice if you ever get some of these mowers from a golf course that a lot of times they use a punch. They'll put a punch in there and they'll hit it with a hammer to tighten them up. And obviously they're not tightening then up to 26 foot-pounds exactly, or 20 foot-pounds, or whatever the actual foot-pounds is. I can't remember. But I mean, they're using a punch to tighten them up. So obviously it's not that big of a deal if you do the exact foot-pounds on these screws. You just don't want to get too crazy with it, do like 100 foot-pounds or something stupid like that. But what I normally do is I'll put these in, and then I'll use a impact gun and just kind of impact them on with a regular impact gun, something from Lowe's, just an impact driver, not a pneumatic impact, but just your normal run-of-the-mill impact driver. And you'll see it's really not that big a deal. You put it on and hit it with that impact, and it's fine. I think it's better than using those punches to tighten these screws up. They'll use a punch to tighten them up, and they'll use a punch to take them off, which is, if that's how they want to do it, I mean, that's fine. That's just not how I do it. So no matter what you do, I've heard this before, that no matter how straight your bed knife is, even if you're going to put a new reel on your mower, it doesn't matter that you have a brand new reel and you have a brand new bed knife. And the bed knife is straight as can be and the reel straight as can be. It's not going to matter, because your bed bar, the surface of the bed bar, is not going to be as straight as can be. One of the three is going to be uneven. So even if you're going to put a brand new reel on your mower, you're going to need to either have it ground or you need to backlap it in. Now, you really need to have it ground. So you need to, even though you have a brand new reel, you need to have that reel ground to make sure it's 100%. So you need to take it to a professional grinder, and then that has professional equipment. They'll not only, even though this is a brand new bed knife from R&R, they state that it's already been ground to the specifications it needs to be. It's going to be uneven because you're mounting it to bed bar. This bed bar is not going to be even. I'll tell you that right now. No matter what I do, I always have to, get backlap or mate them together. But even though they say these are perfect, they're not going to be once you put them on here. So go get your reel ground. If you're brand new reel, brand new bed knife, brand new everything, go get the reel and the bed knife ground. They'll grind the bed knife and they'll grind the reel. They'll make them 100% and they'll match up perfectly. Even after you have them ground, it's not a bad idea to backlap with really light compound to get them mated absolutely perfectly. But that's just what I've heard, is that there's no way that you're going to be able to put these on a reel, that you're replacing the reel and the bed knife. It don't matter what you're doing, that it's going to be uneven. You're going to have either the sides are going to be cutting only, or the middle is going to be cutting only, or it's going to be cutting and not cutting somewhere. It always happens, no matter what. Every time I do this, no matter what the reel looks like, the ends cut and the middle doesn't. Every time. So I always have to backlap them out to make sure they're cutting perfectly. Now it's not hard for me to backlap them out and get them cutting perfectly. But okay, now what I'm going to do, there is a special tool that you can buy straight from Toro, and it is made specifically for these screws. Okay, I believe, if I remember correctly, they're two different sizes. There's two different size screws on the heads here on the deal. So I'm not exactly sure. Don't quote me. I haven't seen every single one, and I'm not a professional. At a golf course doing this stuff professionally. But there's a specific tool that will go on your on here, on your ratchet, and then you can torque it down. You can torque it down to exactly 25 foot-pounds if you want. That's how you want to do it. That's just not how I do it. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you what I do. So I need a 1/2 inch adapter. All right. And I'm going to use this guy right here. Okay. This came from Harbor Freight. You can get them in a whole set. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these. Okay. You can just go to Harbor Freight and get one of these, real thick, because you need that thick end right there to go right inside there. Works just fine. Okay. Now to tighten this down, tighten the ends first, and then you're going to start in the middle, and you're going to alternate your way out. All right, we started in the middle, we worked our way out. Now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to go through and I'm going to do it one more time just to make sure everything's nice and tight. I have no idea what the foot-pounds is. All I know is I'm not whacking these things on with a punch. They're not going to come out. I mean, let's just put it that way. They're not coming out. There you go. Easy peasy, just like that. Since you put the anti-seize on there, you should be able to get them off fairly easily. It won't be that big of a deal. They're definitely not going to come out. You didn't over tighten them. You didn't under tighten them. I think that they're fine, honestly. It's not that big a deal. Now, this bed knife is the thick bed knife. Those are the bed knives I like to use. On a GM1000 or GM1600, I like to get basically the thickest knife that I can, unless you're going to be cutting a putting green and actually going down to 1/8 of an inch. Then you may need to get a different knife. There's like a low cut. There's multiple options that you can get. You can get a tournament knife that'll be really thin, but I like to get the thick bed knives. Somewhere like if you get a Toro 1600 and you look up the bed knives on R&R, it's going to say fairway knife. There's a fairway knife, and then there's a thick one. So one says fairway, one says thick, and it'll tell you how high you're supposed to be able to cut with them in the description. But I get the thick ones. I mean, these are going to be for homeowners. I mean, trust me, they'll go low enough to cut a putting green in your backyard. It's fine. But I like to get the thick ones. That way, when I put this back on the reel, on the mower, and I try to mate the reel with this bed knife, I'm going to have plenty of meat that I can backlap it on there. You know, and if I have to backlap way too much, I'll stop and I'll have the reel ground professionally by somebody that has the correct equipment. But typically, I'm able to backlap them together, and it works just fine. So that's how I do it.